Ever wonder why women can recall the exact shade of the shirt you wore on your first date 3 years ago, while you're struggling to remember what you had for lunch yesterday? It's not just a personality quirk or a case of paying more attention, it is deep-seated, hardwired neurological programming. And once you truly understand what is happening beneath the surface of female psychology, you begin to see relationships, attraction, emotional connection, and even conflict in a completely different way. Most people believe human connection is built through logic, facts, or grand gestures. But the female mind often operates through emotional pattern recognition, anticipation, safety, and meaning. That's why something that seems small to one person can become unforgettable to a woman for years. A single sentence, a look, a moment of silence, a forgotten promise. These things don't disappear because the female brain is constantly scanning for emotional significance, not just information. And if you've ever felt confused by a woman's reactions, if you've ever wondered why she remembers certain moments so vividly, or why emotional energy matters so much more than perfect words, you are absolutely not alone. I want you to stay with me until the end of this video, because some of what you're about to hear may completely change how you understand women, relationships, and even yourself. And while you're listening, I want you to comment below with one thing a woman once remembered that shocked you. Maybe it was a tiny detail from years ago. Maybe it was the exact tone of your voice during an argument. I read these comments carefully because they reveal something fascinating about human psychology that most people never notice. I'm Mary Smith, host of Senior Mindful Living YouTube channel. Let's begin with one of the most misunderstood forces in female psychology, anticipation. Neuroscientists have discovered that dopamine, the brain's motivation chemical, often peaks not during the reward itself, but during the anticipation of the reward. And in women, this emotional buildup can become incredibly powerful. Think about it. A woman planning a vacation may experience intense excitement weeks before she even leaves. A woman getting ready for a first date often feels more emotionally activated during the preparation than the event itself. The text before the meeting, the wondering, the imagination, the maybe. That maybe is psychologically intoxicating. Researchers studying dopamine pathways found that uncertainty creates heightened emotional engagement. In other words, the brain becomes deeply stimulated when the outcome is not fully guaranteed. This is why emotional buildup matters so much in relationships. The surprise note hidden in her purse, the slow emotional tension before a kiss, the thoughtful buildup before a meaningful conversation. These things matter because the female brain often experiences emotional life as a journey, not simply a destination. And this explains something many men misunderstand. They think once they win the relationship, the emotional work is done. But for many women, emotional connection is not sustained by possession. It is sustained by continued emotional presence and anticipation. One woman once shared a story during a relationship workshop that stayed with me for years. She said the most romantic moment of her marriage wasn't the expensive anniversary trip her husband bought her. It was the week before the trip, when he kept leaving tiny handwritten clues around the house about where they were going. That emotional buildup created excitement, safety, curiosity, and emotional intimacy. The anticipation became the memory. Now let's talk about something even deeper: repetition and emotional truth. Psychologists call this the illusory truth effect. The more often we hear something, the more likely our brains are to accept it as true. And women, because of heightened social awareness and emotional pattern recognition, can become deeply shaped by repeated emotional messaging. This begins early in life. You're too emotional. You need to be prettier. You should keep the peace. You should be more agreeable. You're asking for too much. You should settle down before it's too late. At first, these may seem like harmless cultural messages, but repetition slowly transforms them into internal beliefs, and this matters more than most people realize. The female brain evolved in highly social environments where survival often depended on understanding group dynamics, emotional cues, and social belonging. So repeated messages don't just pass through casually, they embed themselves deeply into emotional identity. This is why negative self-talk becomes so dangerous for women. If a woman repeatedly tells herself, "I'm not enough," her brain eventually stops treating that thought like an opinion. It begins treating it like a fact. Neural pathways strengthen through repetition. The brain literally becomes more efficient at thinking the same thoughts over and over again. But here is the beautiful part. The reverse is also true. Repeated emotional affirmation can slowly rebuild identity. That's why healing often sounds repetitive. I deserve peace. My feelings matter. I am safe now. I do not need to earn love through suffering. These statements may feel awkward at first, but over time they begin rewiring emotional perception itself. And if you are in a relationship with a woman, understand this carefully. The emotional environment you create around her becomes part of her internal reality. Your tone matters, your consistency matters, your emotional presence matters far more than you think. Now, this brings us to one of the most extraordinary aspects of female psychology: emotional mirroring. Women generally possess highly active mirror neuron systems. These neurons help human beings experience empathy by internally simulating the emotions of others. In simple terms, when someone around us feels pain, stress, joy, or excitement, our brain partially mirrors that emotional state. But in women, this system often operates with remarkable intensity. Have you ever noticed how some women can walk into a room and immediately sense tension before anyone says a word? Or how a mother instantly feels anxiety when her child is distressed? Or how a woman may absorb the emotional atmosphere of a relationship so deeply that it physically exhausts her? That is emotional contagion. The female nervous system is often highly responsive to surrounding emotional energy. This creates incredible strengths, compassion, intuition, emotional intelligence, connection. But it also creates vulnerability to emotionally toxic environments. A woman living in constant criticism, emotional instability, or high conflict is not simply dealing with negativity. Her nervous system may actually be absorbing and reproducing that stress internally. This is why emotionally safe relationships are so transformative for women. Safety is not boring. Calm is not weakness. Gentleness is not lack of passion. In fact, research on attachment psychology consistently shows that emotional security allows deeper intimacy, stronger attraction, and healthier long-term bonding. One therapist described it perfectly. She said, "A woman blooms emotionally in environments where her nervous system does not have to stay in survival mode." That sentence alone explains thousands of relationships. Now let's discuss something many people misunderstand completely: psychological reactance. The moment people feel their freedom is threatened, they instinctively want to reclaim it. And for women, this can become especially intense because throughout history, women have often experienced restrictions on autonomy, independence, and personal choice. So when a woman senses control, pressure, manipulation, or emotional confinement, her brain may immediately activate resistance. This is why controlling behavior almost always backfires. Don't wear that. Don't talk to him. You should act differently. You're overreacting. You need to change. Even if the intention seems harmless, the emotional effect can feel deeply threatening to autonomy. And here's what's fascinating psychologically: forbidden things often become more emotionally desirable precisely because they symbolize freedom. This doesn't mean women enjoy rebellion for its own sake. It means the nervous system fiercely protects personal agency. Healthy relationships thrive not through control, but through mutual respect. The strongest emotional bonds are built when a woman feels emotionally safe and psychologically free at the same time. Now let's move into something incredibly important: emotional memory. Many men become frustrated because women remember emotionally painful events with astonishing clarity. An argument from years ago, a dismissive comment, a forgotten birthday, a specific moment where trust was broken. And often the reaction is, why can't she just let it go? But emotionally charged memories are encoded differently in the brain. When strong emotions are present, the amygdala and hippocampus work together to strengthen memory storage. Emotion acts like a highlighter pen for the nervous system. The brain essentially says, "This mattered, save this carefully." So when a woman remembers emotional pain vividly, it is usually not because she enjoys suffering or wants conflict. Her nervous system simply stored that moment as highly significant. And honestly, many women remember positive emotional moments with the same intensity. The first time she felt truly seen, the moment someone defended her, the time someone stayed during her hardest season, the feeling of being emotionally safe. These moments become permanent emotional landmarks. One woman shared that she still remembered a sentence her husband said 25 years earlier during a miscarriage. He simply held her hand and whispered, "You do not have to survive this alone." She said she forgot most of the details from that painful year. but she never forgot how safe she felt in that moment. That is female emotional memory. And once you understand this, communication changes forever. You stop trying to win emotionally and start trying to understand emotionally. Because people rarely remember who won the argument, they remember how the interaction felt. Now let's talk about one of the greatest modern myths surrounding women: multitasking. For decades, society praised women for being able to do it all: build a career, raise children, manage emotional labor, maintain relationships, organize households, remember birthdays, carry invisible mental checklists 24 hours a day. But neuroscience tells a different story. The human brain is not truly designed to perform multiple complex tasks simultaneously. What most people call multitasking is actually rapid task switching. The brain shifts attention from one demand to another at high speed. And women often become exceptionally skilled at this. A woman can answer a work email while mentally planning dinner, remembering a doctor's appointment, monitoring emotional tension in the room, and listening to someone speak, all within seconds. From the outside, it looks effortless. Inside, it can be exhausting. Every mental switch consumes cognitive energy. Psychologists refer to this as switching cost. Each transition forces the brain to unload one mental framework and reload another. Over time, constant switching creates mental fatigue, emotional burnout, and nervous system overload. This is why so many women say they feel tired, even when they technically didn't stop moving. Their minds never stopped processing. One mother once explained it beautifully. She said, "I'm not tired from doing one thing. I'm tired from remembering everything." That sentence captures the hidden burden carried by millions of women. And here's where it becomes emotionally important. Many women have been conditioned to believe exhaustion is proof of value, that resting means laziness, that constantly giving is what makes them worthy. But chronic emotional depletion eventually disconnects women from themselves. So if you're listening to this right now, I want you to hear this clearly. Rest is not weakness. Slowing down is not failure. A nervous system cannot heal while constantly being forced into overperformance. Sometimes the most powerful thing a woman can do is stop proving she can carry everything alone. Now let's explore one of the most subtle psychological dynamics in human relationships: the foot in the door effect. This principle is simple but incredibly powerful. When someone agrees to a very small request, they become psychologically more likely to agree to larger requests later, because the brain wants to remain consistent with its previous behavior. And women, especially those socialized to be nurturing and cooperative, can become highly vulnerable to this pattern. It often starts innocently. "Can you help me with something small? Can you stay a little longer? Can you just understand where I'm coming from? Can you give me one more chance?" Small emotional accommodations slowly grow into larger emotional sacrifices. Before she realizes it, she may be tolerating behavior she never originally agreed to. Why? Because her brain has already established an identity around being understanding, loyal, supportive, or patient. And saying no later creates internal discomfort known as cognitive dissonance. This is why boundaries are psychologically difficult for many women. But healthy boundaries are not rejection. They are self-respect. And one of the most emotionally mature things a woman can learn is this: you can be compassionate without abandoning yourself. That lesson changes lives. Now let's move into something deeply fascinating: eye contact. Eye contact is not just visual interaction, it is neurological communication. When a woman experiences warm, safe, emotionally attuned eye contact, oxytocin levels can rise. Oxytocin is associated with bonding, trust, and emotional closeness. This is why meaningful eye contact during conversations can feel deeply intimate. It silently communicates, "I'm here. I'm listening. You matter. I see you." But context changes everything. Women are incredibly sensitive to intention behind eye contact. A gentle gaze in a safe environment may feel comforting. An aggressive stare in an unsafe environment may instantly activate fear or hypervigilance. Why? Because the female nervous system is constantly evaluating safety, not just physical safety, emotional safety, psychological safety, social safety. Women often read microexpressions, tone shifts, posture changes, and facial tension almost automatically. Many do this without consciously realizing it. That intuition people talk about, It's often rapid subconscious pattern recognition. And this explains why sincerity matters so much. A woman may forget your exact words, but her nervous system remembers whether your energy felt safe or unsafe. Now let's discuss one of the hardest emotional traps to escape, the sunk cost fallacy. This happens when people continue investing in something unhealthy simply because they have already invested so much. A toxic relationship, a draining friendship, an emotionally unavailable partner, a dream that no longer aligns with who they are. The mind says, I've already spent years on this. I can't walk away now. What if all that effort was wasted? And women often experience this intensely because emotional investment carries enormous meaning. Women frequently attach identity to loyalty, to perseverance, to emotional endurance. So leaving can feel like failure. But here's the truth many women need to hear. Staying in pain does not recover past investment. It only increases future loss. One woman stayed in a relationship for 12 years, hoping her partner would eventually become emotionally available. She kept remembering his potential, his promises, the good moments. But eventually she realized something heartbreaking. She was in love with who he could become, not who he consistently was. That realization changed her life. And maybe someone listening right now needs to hear this too. Your future deserves consideration too, not just your past sacrifices. Now we arrive at the deepest truth of all. Emotions are the permanent currency of human connection, especially in female psychology. People believe relationships survive through logic alone, through facts, through technical correctness, through material gestures. But the female brain encodes emotional experience more deeply than intellectual explanation. A woman may forget the exact wording of a conversation. She may forget minor details. She may even forget timelines. But she rarely forgets emotional impact. How you made her feel becomes the emotional lens through which future interactions are interpreted. Did she feel safe, dismissed, desired, invisible, valued, judged, protected, alone? These emotional imprints shape attachment, trust, attraction, and emotional intimacy. And this is where so many relationships fail. People try to solve emotional wounds with logic alone. I already apologized. That's not what I meant. You misunderstood. You're being too sensitive. But emotional pain is not processed only through information. It is processed through emotional repair. Sometimes what heals a woman is not the perfect explanation. It is emotional presence. A calm voice, accountability, consistency, gentleness, patience, validation. One husband once admitted after 30 years of marriage that the greatest lesson he learned was this. When my wife was hurting, she didn't always need solutions first. She needed to feel emotionally safe enough to breathe again. That single realization transformed their marriage. And honestly, this entire conversation is bigger than dating or romance. This is about understanding human emotional biology at a deeper level. Because when women feel emotionally safe, respected, heard, and valued, something remarkable happens. Their nervous system softens, their creativity returns, their warmth expands, their trust deepens, their emotional energy becomes magnetic. And when they feel chronically dismissed, criticized, controlled, or emotionally unsafe, the opposite happens. They emotionally withdraw to survive. So if there's one thing I want you to take away from this entire video, it's this. People may forget your arguments. They may forget your explanations. They may even forget specific moments, but they rarely forget emotional experience. The feeling remains, and that feeling becomes the emotional map the brain uses for every future interaction. If this video spoke to you in some way, I want you to share your thoughts below. Which psychological insight surprised you the most? And have you ever experienced a moment where someone's emotional impact stayed with you for years? Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share this with someone who would genuinely benefit from understanding female psychology on a deeper level. Because the more we understand each other emotionally, the healthier every relationship in our lives becomes.